Greetings, my name is Odin from the Odin's Musings YouTube channel, and I'm here on behalf of Aura Crystals. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to do the flat herringbone stitch, and this is one of the more fundamental techniques that you will learn when you're starting your jewelry making adventure. Herringbone gets its name because of the position of the beads and the orientation once you stitch it through. You'll notice it has an askew, pointed orientation that meets up at a point, kind of like the bones of a fish. Therefore, it's called herringbone. This is a very versatile stitch, and it's used in a lot of applications, from simple flat cuffs to anything from transitions, ropes, bails, and connectors, and other applications, especially in bead embroidery. To teach you how to do this stitch, I'm going to be using two contrasting colors of Delica beads. These are in size 11. You can use whatever seed beads you would like. I have just found that Delicas are really great at showing off the positioning of the beads and the angles that they flow in. I'm using a nice lovely matte cream as well as a matte transparent orange or tangerine. I'm also using a D-weight black Nymo and a size 12 beading needle, but feel free to use a size 10 if you're more comfortable with that. The materials used will be in a list in the description box down below, as well as links to where you can purchase. And so, let us get started. I'm going to start off by adding about a yard's worth of thread on my beading needle, or whatever length that you are comfortable with. I'm going to show you how to attach more threads later. The most common way to start off herringbone stitch is to actually use one row of ladder stitch first, and then anchor the herringbone stitch on top of it. And this is the technique that I'm going to show you today. So I'm going to start off by threading on two of one color of my beads, and I'm going to pull that down and leave about a 4 to 6 inch tail just so that I can weave it through after I'm finished with the startup. So I'm going to hold my thread so that the beads are right on top of each other in one column. This side going downward is my tail end, this side going up is my working thread. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the second one, the top one, away, then I'm going to pass back through the first bead. And when I pull this tight, the second bead should line up in place. Don't worry too much if it doesn't fall tightly next to it. You can fix that later on. Now to continue my ladder stitch, I'm going to pass down through the second bead. Then I'm going to add my next color. And I'm going to follow the direction of the thread. So since it's going downward, I'm going to go down this second bead, pull that tight, so that the third bead is anchored in place. Now I need to move forward in order to attach my next one. So I'm going to pass up through the third bead. I'm going to add one more of my second bead. And since the thread is coming upwards, I'm going to pass up in order to anchor bead number 4. Moving on, I'm going to pass down bead number 4, and I'm going to go back to color number 1. See where my thread is coming out of, and pass down through bead number 4 to attach bead number 5. Herringbone works in sets of 2, which is why I'm going to maintain a matched pair of 2 colored beads just to keep this pattern forward. So I'm going to continue on until I've added 2 sets of 2 colors. So my next one going up, I'll add one more to make a pair. Go up so that it sits next to it. Go down the last bead, add one, go down, go up, add one, continue up, and I'm going to finish off by going down. Now, this is the length that I have chosen for my flat stitch. When composing your own designs and patterns, you're always going to want to work with an even number of beads. So, my thread is over here. I can work from the herringbone this way, but I like it to be a little bit more reinforced at the bottom. So all I'm going to do is travel all the way down until I've reached the tail end here. So I'm going down, I'm just going to go up and down, up, and down, up, down, and finally up. So you notice we've also pursed all of these beads nicer together so that they are firmly next to each other. Now that I have my base, I'm going to start off with my herringbone stitch. So since I have 2 whites here, I'm going to add 2 whites. I'm going to jump immediately down, and my herringbone starts here. You'll notice the beads are off kilter, and they are pointed towards the center. Now to set up for my next stitch, all I'm going to do is pass up through the next bead. Get ready for my next stitch. I've added on 2 of color B. Go down the next bead so that I've added my second stitch. Go up the next bead, add on 2 color A. Go down the next bead, play with the beads until they sit nicely, and our final stitch, we go up the next bead, add on 2 beads, and go down the last bead. Now that we have finished our row, we have to do a little bit of finagling in order to turn our threads into the right bead. We want to start at the farmost right bead here, but the only path I have in order to do it is to go from the left bead here. So all I'm going to do in order to turn my thread is to pick up the second to last bead on the lower row, and then cross over and move to the rightmost bead. And now I am ready to start my stitch again. So to start the next row of herringbone, I'm going to add on 2 beads, go down the next bead to add my third stitch. Now I'm going to pick up the next bead from the second row. We are all done with the bottommost row. We don't need to touch that again. I add on 2 beads, pass down just on the second row. To the next row, I just pick up the next bead on the second row. Add on 2 beads, go down just the second row to anchor your next stitch. Finally, for the last stitch, we pick up the next bead, pick up 2 beads, and go down the last bead on this row. Now it's time to turn my thread again. I need to end up on the leftmost bead. So all I'm going to do is go over and pick up the second to last bead on this row, and then move over and pick up the leftmost bead so that the thread gets hidden beneath. And now I'm ready to make my next stitch. So once more, I'll pick up 2 beads, go down the next one. I will pick up the next bead just on row 3. We are done with row 2 and we don't need to touch it anymore. Pick up 2 more beads, go down the next one just on row 3. Pick up the next bead, pick up 2 more beads, go down the next one, pick up the next one on row 3, add 2 more beads, and pick up the last bead. Now we turn our threads to set up for the next stitch. So I am at my rightmost bead. I'm going to pick up the second to last one on the previous row. Then I'm going to move over and pick up the rightmost bead on the top row. And that is how you do the stitch. You just go back and forth, working in 2 beads at the same time, until you have the length that you want. Now this is another one of those stitches that can be mirrored, so if you're not comfortable going back and forth, you can always, after you finish a row, flip it over and you work from the opposite side. It'll work the same way in both directions. Repeat this until you have about 1 inch worth of beadwork, and then I will show you how to end threads and attach new ones. Now ending threads on flat herringbone is really simple and doesn't require any knots. You'll want to end your thread after a finished row so you don't need to pay too much attention to where your threads need to be. So I'm coming out of the rightmost bead at the very top. All I'm going to do is pass down at least 4 beads, but more is just fine if your needle ends up going through that anyway. So I'm going to go down, then I'm going to go up, and pick up at least 4 beads, if not some more. Go down 1 more row, picking up at least 4 beads, and finally up through at least 4 beads. I generally like to go all the way to the top so it makes it easier for me to cut my threads. And if you've gone through at least 4 rows back, that should be secure enough to cut the thread. Now, to attach a new thread, we can start off at either side since the flat herringbone mirrors. So I'm going to start off from the left side, and I'm going to count 4 rows back and start from there. So from 4 rows, I'm going to go down at least 4 beads. I'm going to leave about an inch of a tail so that I have something to hold on to in case I pull too tight. Then I'm going to go up at least 4 beads. And I'm going to pass through at the same level at least 4 beads so that the thread gets hidden inside. And finally go up all the way to the top. And now if I pull my thread, that tail isn't going anywhere. And I am okay to cut my thread. From here, I am free to start a whole new row. So I'm going to do just that. Adding my 2 beads. And continuing on until I've added a new row. So that is about it for the flat herringbone stitch. Thank you all for joining me on this lesson. You will find the materials lists as well as links to where you can purchase over in the description box down below. And feel free to subscribe to Aura Crystal's YouTube channel to get updates on new tutorials as well as new design ideas. If you would like to see more of my work, feel free to check me out over at Odin's Musings YouTube channel or at odinsbeadhall.com.